Hi, this is Gary Jordan, also known as the Blind Bitcoiner. Um, I want to talk today about something that I saw this morning on Twitter, and I can't find it for some reason. Anyway, um, and it was a BDT Apostle Bitcoiner, I believe his name was, and I'm following him. He's pretty good. He got a lot of good stuff, but he said something that kind of rubbed me wrong the way it always does when I encounter it, and that is the car as freedom. And what I mean by that is that it's often said by a lot of liberty folks, their movements, libertarianism. You run into this a lot. You might like a lot of what they say. You might agree with a lot of what they say, but sooner or later they get to this crazy place where they happen to say that you're not free unless you drive a car. Well, I got news for these folks. There are millions of Americans, including myself, that will never be able to drive a car. You have visually low vision, partly sighted that is, and blind people. You've got autistic people. You've got intellectually disabled, slash, we used to call it retarded, which is the old way I learned to hear it. So sorry, snowflakes. That's what I'm going to call it. But you got all these folks that can't drive. It's not safe for us to drive. And to hear this equation, this driving a car is equated with freedom, to me, it's just like very, it's not really offensive, it's not practical. It's not needed. He was lamenting how young people these days don't clamor to get their driver's license. And they don't. Well, why? You got one of these things, a smartphone. You can do stuff with a smartphone that you couldn't do 20, 30 years ago when I was in high school. I was in high school between 1983 and 1987 in Antelope Valley High School, which is part of the Antelope Valley High School District. And they had a mandatory driver's ed back then. They put me in it because I was mainstream when I was like, 7, 8 years old. And this was their idea of being normal. You drive a fucking car, and that makes you a real man. And I live in Southern California. Palmdale, Lancaster, they're part of the Antelope Valley. And it's in the westernmost edge of the Mojave Desert. The Southern California and all of the Southwest, it tends to be rural. And in California, they practically worship the things. These cars are deities. And I wanted to share this as a video so people can understand. I felt more free when I was partly sighted with my Coke bottom bottle glasses, walking to and from school, walking much of the time it was close enough to and from the store, helping my mom. I took the buses when it was too far to walk because it was still safe enough for me to cross the streets to get to bus stops. And I felt free then. I know it's going to be a real foreign concept to car drivers. You're not free unless you drive a car. Well, I guess what I felt free. I was connected to the land. I did it in the winter, summer, spring, and fall. I've been sandblasted, melted in my own, roasted in my own juices. I've been frozen walking because the hard desert. We can get pretty cold, not super cold, but we can get cold enough, especially in the early mornings. And you can get pretty hot in the summer. 100, 105, that's hot enough for most people. So I wanted to let you people know that this is not the case. Now you got 30 years later where 35, whatever it is, years later where it's no longer mandatory. But there's nothing wrong with that. So what do we need to have? We need new symbols for the 21st century. Is being a car driver, is that really free? Hey, you got your insurances, you got fuel, you've got maintenance, which in some parts of the country can be really high because you've got the weather being very destructive on the rubber or on the metal or whatever. And the icing I hear isn't bad, great. So you've got all these things. So what happens to the disabled kids and adults that can't drive? Are we not free? I guess not. To tell you how bad it is in California, in 2000, we had one of these gubernatorial elections. And Pete Wilson was trying to run for a third election. And the dude was a fearmonger. That's all he was. He was a Republican fearmonger. Oh, worry about the illegal aliens coming across. They're going to steal your babies or some such thing. They went to this ridiculous thing about driver's license, where if you were an illegal, you shouldn't have a driver's license. Well, guess what? If you bring them across the country, if you encourage them to come into the country to do your agriculture, to fix your food, to babysit your children, to do all, they should be able to drive. But what I wanted was drivers that were safe. They knew the rules of the road as we do them here. Not necessarily the rules of the road that they might have learned down in Mexico. Because our rules, while there are some things that are similar, there's other stuff that are different. And I wanted them to be safe. Pete Wilson apparently didn't give a damn if there was all these kids and adults that were killed, maimed for life. He didn't care. He was doing political brownie points to scare people into voting for him. Then you got the Latinos, my brothers and sisters, because I'm all white, you can tell I'm a gringo, who they got even stupider, which I thought was impossible until they started doing their human right to drive. It's a human right here. Many Californians treat it that way. The Hispanics were the first one to come out and say it, but it's been that way for decades before. And a human right is something that is a part of being human. Well, what about again, I think of all the disabled kids. I was volunteering at the time. We had quite a few Hispanics in the classes that I dealt with, the three that I actually ended up working with. And at the time, the one I was working with, volunteering in. And so they're not human because they can't drive. These autistic, severely retarded young adults who can never drive any more than I could ever drive. We're not adults. We're not adults, but according to that thinking, we're not human. Now, how did this relate to Bitcoin? Not a lot, not directly anyway. But again, I pull out my cell phone, my smartphone. It relates to the micro technologies. Because Bitcoin is an internet-based peer-to-peer money. It can be used regardless of whether you drive or not. And it does give you freedoms of a kind that we can't get with the US dollar, especially in its fiat incarnation. But the micro technologies are what's enabling the possibility for navigation. Now that I'm totally blind, I use navigation to tell me what street I'm by so that I can know where I'm at, so I can use my own judgment for navigating to replace the sight I did have, the limited sight I had. You have all kinds of things that you have speech boards on your smartphone now. For a child or adult who can't talk, can on their iPad or their iPhone touch it and touch a picture, and it'll say what that is, so that the people around them know what they want. There are all kinds of things we can do on a smartphone or a tablet. And it's all because of the digital micro technologies that Bitcoin is a part of. So I just ranting because it always bothered me. It doesn't matter whether what group it is. And it's always turned me off and turned me away. But it's a real question now, with millions more young people, the up and coming generations that will be severely autistic in one way or another, intellectually disabled young people, blind and other handicapped people that can't drive. Is freedom for us? Will we ever be free? at least in the minds of those that champion freedom and liberty, whether it be for us people in, I refer to it El Norte, which means the north in Spanish, which Colin Woodard uses as the name for our region in the southwest and some of the couple of the northern states of Mexico. Are we free anywhere because we can't drive a car? Is that, are we human even, according to the people who, about this liberty equals freedom equation? So I leave you that to ponder and think about. So I hope you all have a great day, and think about your brothers and sisters who aren't fortunate enough to be able to drive a car. I know when I walked everywhere, I loved it. I took a bus to bury my mom. I did everything, train rides were fun when I went up north. But, I could just ramble on forever. But I'll leave you with those thoughts, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.